Have you ever noticed that you can understand a ton of English, like movies, podcasts, maybe even this deep dive,
Right.
but like actually speaking it, it
Yeah.
feels like a totally different thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's a super common challenge, and that's exactly what we're going to explore today.
Awesome.
Like why that happens, and more importantly, what you can do about it.
Okay.
So we're diving deep into some insights from this really popular YouTube English learning channel.
Cool.
So think of it kind of like a shortcut to just like unlocking fluent and confident conversation.
I like it.
Yeah.
It is fascinating, though, how many English learners experience this disconnect.
Yeah.
They can like absorb information passively, but then when they have to produce spoken English,
Yeah.
it's like they hit a wall.
Yeah. Let's unpack this more then.
So,
Like, why does it feel so different to understand versus actually like speak?
it's a great question. So think about it like learning to play the piano.
Okay.
You can listen to beautiful music for hours.
Yeah.
You can understand the melody, the harmony, but that won't make your fingers magically like dance across the keys.
Right.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So like listening and understanding are like appreciating the skill,
Yeah.
but speaking requires us to like train our language muscles.
Exactly. Speaking, just like playing piano demands practice.
Okay.
You're building muscle memory, you're coordinating a bunch of mental processes.
And just like stage fright for a pianist, there's that added element of confidence,
Of course.
which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But first, there's another trap that I've noticed, and I bet you have too.
Okay.
The translation trap.
Ah, yes.
So I catch myself thinking in my native language and then trying to translate it into English
Mm-hmm.
before I can speak.
Yeah.
It's like my brain is stuck in this like double processing mode.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
That's a massive roadblock to fluency.
Yeah.
Imagine having a smooth conversation while constantly flipping through a mental dictionary.
Right.
It makes your speech slow, unnatural, hesitant. So how do we break free from this translation trap and start
Right.
speaking more naturally?
Well, the key is to start thinking in English.
Okay.
So instead of viewing English as this like code to decipher,
Mm-hmm.
you need to internalize it as a natural way to express your thoughts.
I'm intrigued, but how do we actually think in a different language?
Yeah.
It's not like I can just flip a switch and suddenly my inner monologue is in English.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on how to make that shift?
It's a process for sure.
Okay.
One of the most effective techniques is to create an immersive environment,
Okay.
surrounding yourself with English as much as possible.
So we're talking like listening to English music, watching movies, maybe even changing my phone settings to English?
All of that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's about immersing yourself in the rhythm and the patterns of the language.
Okay.
It's almost like training your ear to think in English.
Yeah.
You'll start noticing English phrases and expressions just popping into your head more naturally. It's like building a mental library of English ready to use in conversations.
Exactly.
Okay, but even with all the practice and immersion, there's still that big hurdle.
Yeah.
The fear of making mistakes.
Of course.
It can be so paralyzing.
Oh, absolutely. The fear of sounding silly or saying the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's universal for language learners.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
How do we overcome that fear?
So the first step is to remember that everyone makes mistakes.
Okay.
It's part of the learning process, even for native speakers.
That's good to remember, especially when I'm feeling self-conscious.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't, but sometimes I compare myself to native speakers, and it just makes me feel worse.
Well, instead of seeing mistakes as failures,
Yeah.
see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Okay.
Each mistake is a chance to improve your pronunciation, your grammar, your vocabulary.
So it's like those fail videos we see online where people laugh at themselves
Right.
and learn from their mishaps. It's about taking ourselves less seriously and focusing on the learning process.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about practicing speaking,
Right.
thinking in English,
Right.
and getting over the fear of mistakes.
Yeah.
But are there any specific techniques that you find particularly helpful for developing fluency?
There are.
What can we actively do to get better at speaking?
So one of my favorites is called shadowing.
Okay.
Have you heard of this technique?
I've heard the name,
Got
but
it.
I'm not sure how it works.
Okay, so it's quite simple.
Okay.
You listen to a native speaker.
Mm-hmm.
It could be from a podcast, a movie, anything.
Okay.
And you try to repeat what they're saying almost simultaneously.
Okay.
So your voice becomes like a shadow following the speaker's voice.
So I could put on my favorite English podcast
Yeah,
and try to speak along with the host.
exactly. You're mimicking their pronunciation, their intonation, even their rhythm and pacing.
Okay.
It's like a vocal workout for your English.
I can see how that would be helpful. It's like having a conversation partner, even if it's just a recording.
Yeah.
I actually tried something similar when I was learning to sing repeating phrases after the vocal coach.
Oh, nice.
What are your tips for making shadowing effective for speaking?
So the material we're exploring today suggests starting small.
Okay.
You don't need to shadow an entire movie at once.
Right.
Maybe choose a scene or a segment you like.
Okay.
Maybe a minute or two and focus on that.
Okay.
As you get comfortable, gradually increase the length.
Okay, so starting small and building up.
Exactly.
What else?
Pay close attention to the details.
Okay.
Notice how the speaker pronounces certain words, where they place the stress,
Yeah.
and how their intonation changes throughout the sentence.
So it's not just about repeating words, but trying to imitate those subtle nuances in their speech.
Precisely. The more you focus on those details, the more natural your own spoken English will become.
This shadowing technique sounds like a really powerful tool.
It is.
I'm definitely adding that to my practice routine. Now, you mentioned earlier that speaking involves coordinating a bunch of mental processes.
Yes.
Why does speaking feel so hard even after lots of listening?
Yeah.
Does it have to do with, like, how our brains learn language?
Yeah. You've hit on a key point.
Okay.
Language learning rewires our brains.
Okay.
Understanding a language doesn't automatically activate the pathways needed for speaking.
So even if we've got all the ingredients for speaking, vocabulary, grammar, comprehension,
Yeah.
we're missing the recipe for putting it all together.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And sometimes that missing piece is all about confidence.
Oh, cool.
We might know the words,
Yeah,
but the fear of judgment amplifies those tiny mistakes in our minds.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's that mental block that holds a lot of learners, myself included, back from speaking confidently.
The key is to shift our perspective.
Okay.
Think about a baby learning to walk.
Okay.
They stumble, they fall, they get up and try again.
Yeah,
They don't judge themselves for those wobbly steps. They just keep practicing.
that's such a good point.
Yeah.
So we should approach speaking English with that same childlike curiosity and resilience,
Yeah.
embracing those wobbly steps without judgment.
Exactly. Be kind to yourself and remember that fluency is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
It takes time, effort, and a whole lot of practice.
Right.
But with the right mindset and techniques,
Yeah.
you can absolutely transform your understanding into confident speaking.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic.
I know, right?
We'll be back soon to dive even deeper into practical tips and strategies to boost your English speaking skills.
Looking forward to it.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into transforming your English understanding into confident speaking.
Yes.
Last time we explored some really practical techniques like shadowing,
Right.
and I've already started trying it out.
Cool.
It's harder than it sounds,
Yeah.
but I can see how it could help.
Awesome.
And speaking of building skills, we touched on something really intriguing last time. This idea that speaking isn't just about pronunciation and grammar, but also about training our brains.
Yes.
It's almost like we need a new mental recipe for speaking,
Yeah.
even if we have all the ingredients.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Okay.
I think it leads perfectly into what we'll be exploring today.
Okay.
The power of mindset.
You know, it's funny because when I think of language learning, I usually focus on vocabulary, grammar rules, stuff like that.
Right.
But you're right, the mindset piece is often overlooked.
It's so crucial, though.
Okay.
Because your mindset influences how you approach challenges, how you handle mistakes,
Yeah.
and ultimately how motivated you stay
Yep.
throughout the learning process.
Okay, so let's dive into this.
Right.
What are some key mindset shifts
Okay.
that can help us on this journey to confident speaking?
One of the most important is setting realistic expectations. Learning a new language, especially becoming comfortable with speaking, it takes time and consistent effort.
Yeah.
It's not an overnight transformation.
I think a lot of learners, myself included, get caught up in that fluency fast trap.
Oh, yeah?
You know, we see all these ads promising fluency in a few weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And it just sets us up for disappointment.
Exactly. It's important to remember that there's no magic bullet.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on unrealistic timelines,
Okay.
shift your focus to celebrating those small wins along the way.
Okay.
Every new word you learn, Every conversation you have, even if it's just a few sentences, it's a step forward.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly.
We need to acknowledge and appreciate those small steps.
Yeah.
Instead of always focusing on that end goal.
Precisely. And another aspect of setting realistic expectations is defining what fluency means for you. Fluency isn't a one-size-fits-all concept.
Right.
It's about being able to communicate effectively in the situations that matter most to you.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
My definition of fluency might be different from someone who's learning English for business negotiations.
Exactly.
For example.
Are you learning English to travel?
Yeah.
To work, to connect with friends or family?
Right.
Identifying your personal goals will help you tailor your practice and measure your progress in a way that's meaningful to you.
So set realistic goals. Celebrate the small wins.
Yes.
And define what fluency means for you personally. What other mindset shifts can help us speak English with more confidence?
Another big one is developing resilience.
Okay.
There will inevitably be times when you feel frustrated, discouraged, or even tempted to give up.
Those moments when you hit a plateau or make the same mistake over and over again.
Right.
I've definitely been there.
It's completely normal.
Yeah.
The key is to remember that setbacks are part of the process. Instead of letting those moments define you, view them as opportunities to learn and grow. What can you learn from this mistake? How can you adjust your approach moving forward?
So it's about that bounce back factor, not letting those inevitable bumps in the road derail us completely.
Exactly. And one of the most effective ways to cultivate resilience is to connect with a supportive community.
You mean like finding other English learners who understand what I'm going through?
Yes. Finding a language partner.
Okay.
Joining an online forum or group. Or even connecting with other learners in your local community can make a huge difference.
I can imagine sharing your struggles and successes with others who are on the same path can be so encouraging.
Absolutely.
It's like having a built-in support system to keep you motivated and accountable.
That's exactly it. And remember, you're not alone in this journey.
Right.
Millions of people around the world are learning English.
Yeah.
Facing similar challenges and celebrating similar victories.
Yeah.
Connecting with others creates a sense of solidarity and reminds you that it's okay to make mistakes and learn along the way.
Now, we've talked about setting realistic expectations and cultivating resilience.
Yeah.
But there's another aspect of mindset that often creaks in. That fear of judgment.
Of course.
It can feel so intimidating to speak English.
Yeah.
Especially when we're worried about what others might think.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That fear of judgment can be paralyzing. It keeps us from taking risks, from practicing, and ultimately from making progress.
So how do we overcome that fear? How do we learn to be kinder to ourselves? And embrace those imperfections as part of the process?
I love that you use the word kindness.
Yeah.
I think it's a powerful antidote to that inner critic we all have. One technique I find helpful is to reframe how we view our mistakes. Instead of seeing them as signs of failure, try to view them as data points, valuable information that can guide your learning.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yep.
So each mistake is like a little clue that helps us understand where we need to focus our efforts.
Exactly. Instead of beating yourself up for a grammatical error or a mispronounced word, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I adjust my approach next time?
It's like shifting from a judgment mindset to a curiosity mindset. Instead of saying, I messed up.
Right.
We can ask, what can I learn from this?
Exactly.
It takes the pressure off and allows us to see those mistakes as stepping stones on the path to fluency.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become with speaking. And the less power that fear of judgment will hold over you.
So set realistic expectations.
Yes.
Cultivate resilience and practice self-compassion. It sounds like these mindset shifts can make a world of difference in our English-speaking journey.
Absolutely. Remember, your mindset is a powerful tool. Use it to your advantage, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. We'll be back soon with more insights and techniques to help you unlock your English-speaking potential.
Welcome back to our deep dive into speaking English confidently.
It's great to be back.
We've journeyed through that gap between understanding and speaking, and we've explored techniques like shadowing and thinking in English. But what really struck me were those mindset shifts we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Setting realistic expectations, building resilience,
Yeah.
and being kinder to ourselves.
It's so important.
Those feel like game changers.
They absolutely are. Mastering any skill, especially speaking a new language, requires more than just techniques.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating the right mental approach.
So true. It's like having all the tools, but needing that like inner belief and stamina to actually use them.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
let's bring it all together for our listeners.
Right.
What are like the most essential things to remember on this journey from English understanding to confident speaking?
First, remember that speaking is a skill.
What?
Just like playing an instrument or learning to code.
Right.
It improves with practice and the right kind of effort.
And that effort involves more than just memorizing words or grammar rules.
Right. It's about actively using the language.
Yeah.
Even if it feels messy at first.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
View them as feedback, not failures.
Exactly.
Each stumble helps you like fine-tune your approach.
Yeah, it's all part of the process.
We talked about some really cool techniques like shadowing.
Right.
Are there any other practical tips you'd recommend for making practice more effective?
One that often gets overlooked is the power of chunking.
Okay.
It's especially helpful when you feel overwhelmed by long sentences.
Yeah.
Or complex grammar.
I've heard of chunking, but could you break it down for me? Like, how does it actually work in practice?
Imagine you're trying to say, I would like to order a cup of coffee, please. That can feel like a mouthful if you're not used to speaking spontaneously.
Right.
So instead of trying to say the whole sentence at once, break it down into smaller chunks.
Okay.
I would like to order a cup of coffee, please.
So it's like taking a big bite of food and breaking it down into smaller, more manageable pieces.
Exactly.
Makes the whole process feel less daunting.
Precisely. Practice each chunk smoothly.
Okay.
Then gradually combine them until you can say the entire sentence fluidly. It reduces that cognitive overload and helps you build confidence piece by piece.
That's a great tip. I'm definitely going to try that.
Awesome.
Now, we focused a lot on practicing in our own time.
Right.
But eventually we'll want to use our English out in the real world, right?
Of course. And the great thing is, you don't need to wait until you feel perfectly fluent to start having real conversations.
That's reassuring. I think many learners, myself included, have this idea that we need to reach a certain level before we can actually use the language.
It's a common misconception. Think about it this way. A musician doesn't wait until they've mastered every technique before playing in front of an audience.
Right.
They learn and grow through those performance experiences.
That's a great analogy. So how can we create those performance opportunities for ourselves, even if we're not living in an English-speaking country?
There are so many possibilities. Think about your interests and hobbies.
Okay.
Could you join a local group or activity where English is spoken?
Yeah.
It could be a cooking class, a book club, a hiking group, anything that aligns with your passions.
That's a good idea, but I'm quite introverted.
Yeah.
I'd be terrified to just walk into a group of strangers and try to speak English.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Don't feel pressured to jump into a big group setting right away.
Okay.
Start small. Maybe find a language exchange partner online or connect with someone through a language learning app.
Oh, that's a good point. There are so many online resources that can help us connect with other learners and practice in a more comfortable environment.
Exactly. The key is to find what works for you and gradually step outside of your comfort zone. Remember, even small interactions can help you build confidence and fluency over time.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like we've covered so much ground.
I know we have.
From the science behind speaking to practical techniques and powerful mindset shifts.
So much good stuff.
As we wrap up, is there one final piece of advice you'd offer to someone on this journey to confident English speaking?
I'd say this. Remember that language is about connection.
Okay.
Focus on communicating your message, connecting with others, and expressing yourself authentically. Don't get too hung up on perfection.
Right.
Embrace the journey, celebrate the progress, and most importantly, have fun along the way.
I love that it's such a good reminder that language isn't just about rules and structures.
Right.
It's about connecting with other human beings.
Exactly. And when you approach language learning with that spirit of connection and curiosity, the journey becomes so much more enjoyable and rewarding.
Well, folks, there you have it, a deep dive into transforming your English understanding into confident speaking.
That's a wrap.
We hope you found this exploration valuable and encouraging.
I hope so, too.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
But remember, this is just the beginning of your journey.
It is.
So keep practicing.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
Keep learning.
And keep those words flowing.
Until next time, happy learning.